Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to pause for a moment and ask yourself, how often have you felt life completely out of your control? How often have events, people, or situations pushed you to the edge, leaving you frustrated, angry, or overwhelmed? What if I told you the real power in your life doesn't come from changing the world around you, but from changing what happens inside of you? Right here, right now, you're about to discover the secret to reclaiming your power, mastering your emotions, and transforming every challenge into an opportunity. We are talking about not reacting, not giving your power away, and learning to control your emotions in a way that will change your destiny forever. If you stay with me for the next few minutes, you'll walk away with a skill so powerful that no situation, no person, no circumstance will ever be able to control your life again. We don't control events, only our responses. Think about that for a moment. Most of us spend our lives believing that life should happen the way we want it to, that people should act the way we expect, that circumstances should align perfectly with our plans. And when they don't, when someone says something harsh, when a deal falls through, when a relationship strains, we feel frustrated, angry, or powerless. But the reality, the deep truth, is that life is unpredictable. Events come and go like waves in the ocean. You can't stop the tide, and you can't control the weather of the world. What you can control is how you decide to stand in it. You can control the way you respond. You can control whether you sink or swim, whether you are swept away by the current of chaos, or whether you become the master of your own vessel. Most people believe that the world owes them comfort, fairness, or understanding, and when it doesn't, they lash out. But the truth is, no one can take away your power unless you give it away. That power exists in the space between the event and your reaction. That space, small, often overlooked, is where choice lives, and in that choice, you hold the ultimate key to freedom, strength, and personal mastery. When you start to internalize this idea that events themselves are neutral, that they only gain meaning through the interpretation and response you give them, you start to see the world differently. Suddenly, a traffic jam isn't a reason to rage. It's a test of patience. A critical comment isn't an insult. It's an invitation to practice self-control. A failed opportunity isn't a reflection of your worth. It's a chance to grow. When you understand that the external world is largely uncontrollable, but that your inner world is entirely yours, everything shifts. You begin to realize that the energy you spend trying to change what you cannot change is wasted. The power is not in controlling other people, not in trying to force life into your design, but in controlling yourself, your emotions, your thoughts, your reactions. These are the levers that determine the quality of your life. And the moment you accept that, the moment you fully grasp that life's events do not define you, only your responses do, you start to step into a level of freedom and power most people never experience. It's not easy, of course. Our minds are trained for reaction. From childhood, we are conditioned to respond immediately to stimuli. A shout, a threat, a disappointment, fight or flight becomes the default mode. But there's a higher level of functioning that can be developed, a level where you pause, observe, and choose your response consciously. Imagine the difference between being hit by a sudden storm and standing in the rain. Eyes closed, feeling each drop, and choosing whether to move, to dance, or to stand still. That's the difference between reacting unconsciously and responding with mastery. It is in that choice that real power emerges. And the most important realization is that this power is always available. No one can take it from you. No circumstance can steal it unless you allow it, which brings us to the second keynote. Not is the power to pause before reacting. That word, small, simple, almost invisible, holds monumental weight. Not yet. Not like this, not in anger, not in fear, not in reaction. That one word can break the chain of automatic responses that enslave most people. It gives you the gap, the pause to reclaim control. It is a tool for transformation. Think about the last time someone pushed your buttons and you immediately reacted. Maybe it was a harsh email, a rude comment, or an unfair accusation. What happened next? Did you feel regret? Did your energy spike in a negative way? Did the situation escalate? That is the power of automatic reaction. Now imagine if in that moment you had inserted one word, not now, not like this. Not in this state instantly, you create distance between stimulus and response. You shift from being a victim of circumstance to being a conscious creator of your own reality. The power of not is deceptively simple but profoundly transformative. It's a pause that interrupts your autopilot, a break in the habitual pattern that allows you to choose differently. That pause is where the magic happens. In that fraction of a second, you decide whether your next move will be dictated by fear, anger, or impulse, or by your highest self, your vision, your principles. And the more you practice it, the stronger you become. Each time you say not, you are exercising the muscle of emotional mastery. Each time you choose to pause, you reinforce the truth that your emotions serve you. They do not rule you. Over time, this small act compounds. You start to notice a shift, not only in how you handle challenges, but in how you experience life. Situations that once caused anxiety or frustration now become opportunities to step into your power. What's remarkable about this concept is how liberating it feels. So many people are trapped in emotional cycles, reacting, regretting, repeating. And yet, the solution is not to suppress feelings or pretend they don't exist. The solution is to pause, to create that space, and to consciously choose your response. Not is the gateway. It's the checkpoint where you reclaim your power, where you remind yourself that you are not at the mercy of circumstance, and where you begin to act from intention rather than impulse. It is a practice that, like any skill, grows stronger with repetition. And once you integrate it, you notice something incredible. Life begins to bend in your favor, not because events themselves have changed, but because you have changed. You no longer react. You respond. You no longer give power away. You stand firm, unshakable, anchored in the knowledge that your mind, your heart, and your actions are yours to command. Every human being has moments where the instinct to react is almost irresistible. But here is the empowering truth. The strength of your life is not determined by how much life challenges you. It is determined by how much control you take over your reactions. The power of not transforms ordinary moments into moments of choice. You can choose patience instead of anger, understanding instead of resentment, calm instead of chaos. And every time you make that choice, you are not just controlling a single situation, you are shaping your identity, your relationships, and the trajectory of your life. The ripple effects are massive. One moment of mastery can prevent hours of conflict. One pause can prevent damage to a career, a friendship, or even your own sense of self. And the more often you practice, the more natural it becomes. Not is also a shield. It protects you from the manipulations, provocations, and expectations of others. When someone tries to push you off your center, not becomes a statement of independence, not in fear, not in anger, not on someone else's terms. You become your own standard, your own authority. And when you internalize that, you realize that no event, no person, no circumstance holds any inherent power over you. All power is transferred through your reaction, and you now hold the key to what you release into the world and what you allow to shape your inner state. The beauty of these two ideas working together, the recognition that we don't control events, only our responses, and the practice of not as a tool to pause, is that they create a new framework for life. They create a life where chaos no longer rules, where emotions no longer hijack, and where every challenge becomes an opportunity to step into mastery. You are no longer at the mercy of the storm. You are learning to dance in the rain, to command the currents, and to harness the energy of life itself. You begin to see that real power is not about changing the world. It's about changing your mind, controlling your state, and becoming unshakable regardless of the circumstances. And as you do, everything you once thought was external limitation begins to collapse, because the true limit was never outside, it was inside, in the way you allowed events to control you. Pausing gives you space to step into control. Imagine for a moment a life where you never had a pause button. Every time something happened, good or bad, you reacted immediately, without thought, without consideration, without control. You would be like a leaf in the wind, tossed in every direction by circumstances, emotions, and other people's expectations. Most people live this way. They allow their lives to be dictated by triggers, by events they cannot control, by emotions that surge unbidden. But here's the truth. The pause is your ultimate weapon. It is your moment of power. That fraction of time between stimulus and response is where freedom lives. That is where you step out of chaos and into authority over yourself. When you pause, you create a gap. In that gap, you see possibilities. You see options you could not see in the heat of reaction. You see the difference between acting from anger or fear and acting from clarity, purpose, and strategy. That pause is not weakness. It is strength. It is the moment where you take back control, where you reclaim your energy from the world that seeks to drain it, where you refuse to let impulsive emotion dictate your actions. The pause allows you to choose consciously rather than react unconsciously. And choosing consciously transforms your life. One pause leads to one controlled response. One controlled response leads to another. And over time, those choices compound. They compound into confidence, into resilience, into an unshakable state of being. Most people underestimate the power of pausing because they confuse it with hesitation. They believe that to act immediately is to be strong, to be decisive, to be powerful. But true power does not come from impulsivity. True power comes from self-mastery. True power comes from the ability to stand firm, to observe, to breathe, and to decide. The pause is the crucible of transformation. It is where ordinary people become extraordinary. In that brief space, you are no longer a victim of circumstance. You are the architect of your response, the designer of your emotional state, the commander of your life. Every time you pause, you reinforce the principle that you control your reactions, not the other way around. And the beauty is that this skill can be practiced. Like a muscle, the more you use it, the stronger it becomes. Now, consider the moments in your life where you reacted without pause. Think about the conflicts that escalated, the opportunities that were missed, the relationships that suffered. Could those situations have been different if you had simply paused, if you had taken a breath, stepped back, and chosen your response with clarity and intention? The answer is yes, almost every time. The pause is a game changer because it interrupts the habitual patterns that govern most people's lives. It is a conscious intervention in the automatic chain reaction that keeps people stuck, frustrated, and controlled by forces outside themselves. And when you start pausing consistently, you start to notice a shift in your life. Challenges become manageable. Conflicts become solvable. Stress diminishes. You feel stronger, calmer, and more capable because you are no longer giving away your power with every reaction. Which brings us to another critical truth. Reacting automatically gives others power over you. Every time you respond to a provocation, to a challenge, to someone else's negative energy, you are handing them control. Your anger feeds their agenda. Your fear amplifies their influence. Your frustration validates their impact. And most people don't even realize it. They think that reacting proves their strength, but it does the opposite. It proves that they are controlled by circumstance, by emotion, by external events. True strength is measured not by how forcefully you react, but by how consciously you respond. It is measured by how consistently you hold your own state, regardless of what others say or do. When you stop reacting automatically, you take back the authority that others have unknowingly been given. You reclaim your energy, your focus, and your clarity. You become the driver of your own life, rather than a passenger on someone else's agenda. Reacting automatically is like handing someone else the remote control to your emotional life. They press the buttons, and you jump, you shout, you fume, you spiral. But when you pause, when you step into that space of control, you regain the remote. You decide what channels you watch, what frequencies you tune into, and what emotions you allow to influence your state. And the difference is profound. People start noticing situations that once triggered chaos now meet a calm, measured response. Challenges that used to overwhelm you now become opportunities for strategy and mastery. And most importantly, you begin to feel a sense of freedom that is rare in this world. A freedom that comes from knowing that no one and nothing can control your internal state unless you allow it. The act of pausing is also a declaration of self-respect. It says to yourself and to the world, I am not at the mercy of circumstances. I am not a puppet in someone else's story. I am the author of my own. It is an internal shift that radiates outward. When you pause consistently, people begin to treat you differently, not because you are reactive, but because you are powerful. There is a magnetic quality to someone who responds rather than reacts, a sense of authority, calm, and confidence that draws others toward them. And that is no coincidence. Power always follows presence. The more present you are in your life, the more control you have over your emotions, and the more influence you naturally command in your relationships, your career, and your endeavors. Pausing is also a critical tool for mental clarity. When you step back from immediate reaction, you create space for rational thinking, for perspective, for insight. You are no longer trapped in the emotion of the moment, but able to see the situation as it truly is. And perspective is everything. Perspective allows you to make better decisions, to see opportunities where others see obstacles, and to navigate conflict with skill rather than being swept away by emotion. That gap, that pause, is where wisdom begins. It is the intersection between stimulus and choice, between chaos and control, between reaction and mastery. And every time you use it, you strengthen your capacity to lead your own life, to handle adversity with grace, and to live in alignment with your highest vision. Reacting automatically gives others power over you because it transfers control. It makes your life dependent on the moods, actions, and judgments of those around you. And when you live that way, you are constantly at risk of being manipulated, provoked, or derailed. But when you pause, when you step into control, you reclaim that power. You choose how much energy you give to each situation. You decide how much influence you allow external forces to have. You no longer exist at the mercy of others. You exist as the master of your own mind, heart, and actions. This is the essence of personal power, the kind of strength that transforms ordinary lives into extraordinary ones. It is not loud, it is not reactive, but it is profound. It is the difference between being pulled along by life and commanding life with intentionality, presence, and focus. Every human being faces moments of provocation, moments where the instinct to react is immediate and overwhelming. But mastery is defined by what you do in those moments. Do you respond automatically, handing over control, or do you pause, breathe, and step into the space where conscious choice resides? That pause is your superpower. It allows you to reclaim authority, to act with purpose, and to create outcomes that align with your values and vision. And as you practice it, you start to notice the profound impact on your relationships, your career, your health, and your sense of self. You become unshakable because you no longer let the external world dictate your internal state. You decide consciously and consistently how you feel, how you act, and how you show up in every situation. Mastering your emotions is mastering your destiny. When you recognize that every thought, feeling, and impulse can either serve you or sabotage you, you realize the true source of power lies within. Life will always present challenges, conflicts, and unexpected events. But the person who masters their emotions does not bend under pressure. They shape their own reality. Each time you choose calm over chaos, patience over anger, clarity over confusion, you are sculpting your future. Emotions are like a compass. Uncontrolled, they steer you into storms, reactive and chaotic. Harnessed, they guide you to opportunities, growth, and fulfillment. Mastery begins with awareness. And awareness begins with the willingness to pause, observe, and decide, rather than react instinctively. Every pause trains your mind and builds strength. Life is full of moments designed to test us, to provoke us, to challenge our limits. Each time you step back, breathe, and choose your response deliberately, you strengthen your mental and emotional muscles. The more consistently you practice this, the more resilient you become, able to navigate stress, conflict, and uncertainty without losing your center. Strength is not just physical, it is emotional, psychological, and spiritual. Each pause is an act of training, a rehearsal in self-control, and a declaration that you will not be controlled by circumstance. Over time, these small, intentional moments of restraint compound into a profound inner power, shaping the way you face every challenge, every interaction, every decision. Your identity shifts when you choose not to react. Every time you pause, every time you step out of automatic response, you are reshaping the way you see yourself and the way the world experiences you. Most people live their lives on autopilot, reacting to events, to criticism, to challenges, and to the chaos around them. They define themselves by circumstances they cannot control, by the moods of others, by the immediate pressures of life. But when you consistently choose not to react, you begin to realize that you are not the sum of your circumstances. You are the sum of your choices. Each pause, each conscious response is a brick in the foundation of a new identity, one built on awareness, strength, and intentionality. You start to see yourself not as a victim of events, but as the author of your life story, capable of steering your own ship through storms that once would have capsized you. The people around you begin to notice the shift as well. They sense the calm, the presence, the self-control. Your reactions, or rather, your lack of impulsive reactions, become a signal that you operate from a higher plane of understanding. This is not arrogance. This is mastery. This is self-respect in action. You realize that who you are is not defined by the chaos outside, but by the clarity, strength, and intentionality inside. And as your identity shifts, your confidence grows, your relationships improve, and the challenges that once intimidated you now become opportunities to demonstrate your newfound strength. Power lives in controlling your emotions, not circumstances. Too often, people expend energy trying to change the uncontrollable, other people's behavior, the twists of fate, the unfairness of life. They react, they resist, they rage, and they wonder why they feel powerless. The truth is, nothing external can dictate your power unless you allow it. The only thing you truly control is your own mind, your own state, your own response. When you learn to regulate your emotions, you gain access to an unstoppable internal strength. Fear, anger, frustration, and disappointment become signals rather than masters. They tell you where you have opportunity to grow, where your boundaries need reinforcement, and where your focus should shift. Controlling your emotions is like holding the steering wheel in a storm. The world around you may be turbulent, but your direction remains intentional. The more you practice this, the more resilient, focused, and empowered you become. You stop giving power to external events and people and start reclaiming it for yourself. The energy you once wasted reacting automatically is now redirected toward solutions, toward growth, toward intentional action. Life begins to feel different because you feel different. You are no longer at the mercy of circumstance. You are the driver of your life, anchored in the knowledge that your emotions, when mastered, are the most reliable compass, guide, and tool you have to create results, influence outcomes, and build the life you truly want. Greatness is choosing freedom over automatic response. Most people measure success by external achievements, titles, wealth, recognition, but true greatness begins much earlier in the mastery of self. It begins in the silent moments, when you decide not to react, when you choose to pause, when you refuse to hand over your emotional power to the chaos of life. Freedom is the ability to respond rather than react, to step outside the pressure and decide with clarity, purpose, and intention. It is a conscious refusal to be hijacked by fear, anger, frustration, or the manipulations of others. Every moment you exercise that freedom, you reinforce the truth that your life is not controlled by circumstance. It is controlled by choice. Greatness emerges not from perfection, but from consistency in this practice. It is in the repeated acts of self-mastery, the deliberate decisions to pause and respond, rather than surrender to automatic impulses, that your character is forged and your influence expands. People will test you, provoke you, challenge you, and sometimes try to pull you into reaction. But the person who chooses freedom sees beyond the immediate drama, beyond the reactive impulse, and steps into a higher level of awareness. Freedom over reaction is the ultimate leverage. It multiplies your capacity to lead, to innovate, to inspire, and to create the life and results you desire. The energy that would have been consumed in unnecessary conflict, regret, or emotional spirals is now available for growth, creativity, and impact. And every choice to exercise that freedom compounds into a life of purpose, power, and influence, happiness, and results come from emotional mastery. The way most people pursue happiness is backwards. They chase external validation, achievements, or fleeting pleasures, believing these will stabilize their emotions. The truth is, happiness is an inside job. It is a direct outcome of how you manage your emotional state. The person who can pause, observe, and respond deliberately, rather than react automatically, experiences life differently. They do not allow circumstances, setbacks, or other people's behavior to dictate their mood or their energy. Instead, they anchor themselves in self-mastery, clarity, and intentional action. This mastery produces results in every area of life, relationships, career, health, and personal growth, because the clarity of mind and control of emotion removes distractions, impulsivity, and self-sabotage. The energy that would have been wasted in reaction is redirected toward meaningful action. Opportunities that others miss because they are entangled in their emotional chaos are noticed and seized. Decisions are made from a place of calm calculation rather than impulsive fear or anger, and actions are executed with consistency and precision. Emotional mastery is the foundation of resilience, creativity, and influence. It allows you to face adversity with confidence, to navigate complexity with clarity, and to create results that align with your values and vision. When happiness and results are no longer dependent on external events but flow from your internal state, you realize a freedom few ever experience, a freedom to live fully, act decisively, and create a life that reflects not circumstance, but conscious, deliberate choice. Let's bring this all together. You've learned that life will never be predictable, and that we don't control events, only our responses. You've discovered the simple, powerful word, not, and how it gives you the pause to step out of chaos and take control of your emotional state. You've seen how pausing creates space to make conscious decisions, how every pause builds your emotional and mental strength, and how your identity begins to shift when you consistently choose not to react. You've realized that true power lives in mastering your emotions, not controlling circumstances, and that greatness comes from choosing freedom, not automatic response. And finally, you understand that happiness, success, and lasting results are the natural outcome of emotional mastery. Every moment you stop reacting and start responding intentionally, you are sculpting a life of freedom, influence, and unstoppable momentum. This is not theory. This is a skill, a muscle, a habit. And when you practice it consistently, you will see transformations in your career, relationships, health, and personal fulfillment that you never imagined possible. You become unshakable, unstoppable, and fully alive. If this message ignited something in you, if you're ready to stop giving your power away and start controlling your destiny, hit that subscribe button now and join the family here on Tony Robbins Track. Share this video, comment below your breakthrough moment, and let us know how you're going to master your emotions starting today. Remember, freedom and results come from emotional mastery take control and watch your life transform.